So thank you very much for joining us in this series of conversations with members of Parliament. As you may know now, Parliament is gone for Christmas break. They will be returning at the end of January to continue business. That will be the State of the Nation meeting, kind of, as the previous one, the one that just ended, has been about the budget presentation. Today we are joined by MP for Tamale North, Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini. He used to do what I'm doing now, but he's in his second term as Member of Parliament for the good people of Tamale North. We'll discuss the budget. The censure motion fiasco, it didn't just get the kind of results they wanted to get, and also the just ended NDC Congress, at which some party stalwarts have been elected as executives. There are those who are concerned that given the rancor that characterized the debate, the NDC may struggle to put its house in order to be able to have a fighting chance for 2024. Honorable Suhuyini, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. I hope you are well.
I'm doing very well. Nice. Honorable, I'll start with the just ended NDC Congress. What are your views about the kind of persons who have been elected by the delegates?
I must say that I am excited by the outcome of the Congress. The lead up to the Congress itself was quite dramatic in some sense. It's kind of revived the spirit of the party in a way I have not seen in a very long time, and that for me was very good for the party. There were those who thought that that this contest shouldn't have come on, especially because of the kind of united front that the party intends to go into the next election with. So those were motivated, those thoughts were motivated or inspired by fears that a contest will necessarily lead to acrimony, which may be difficult to patch up after the Congress to be ready for the general election. So you had people who thought that the contest wasn't necessary, and you had those who thought that it was necessary to, if for nothing at all, rekindle the spirit of the party and to shake things up and to ensure that we put our best foot forward as we march into the election 2024. At the end of the day, I think that both views were relevant. The outcome, however, has shown that the party is in readiness for the general elections ahead of us. I say so because, one, the party has been rekindled, the spirit of the party has been rekindled from the branch to the national level. And it's reflected in the, margins that you even saw. So you do not have middle grounds, so to speak. It is when you have middle grounds and when you have close results that are so close, that are split, that unity becomes difficult to achieve, because then positions tend to be entrenched. But when the outcome of the election is as emphatic as it showed in either the general secretary contest or the chairmanship contest, anybody who is politically minded will understand that his results or her results couldn't have been as a result of any unfair dealings, yes, or machinations. It's a popular view of the party, and if you are political in nature, you'll understand that you win sometimes, you lose sometimes, you lead sometimes, you follow sometimes.
But still, people like Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo have genuine reasons to be concerned that they feel this contest was maybe unfairly tilted. In the lead up, there were some leading members from the caucus in Parliament who threw their weight behind General Mosquito. Indeed, there were those who said that the former president tried to impress on the General Secretary not to contest. There were some also viewpoints that Ofosu-Ampofo was viewed as quote-unquote anti-Mahama. I don't know what that necessarily means within the party. And so the system was turned sort of against him. He released a statement after this Congress saying that there were certain things that happened that would make it a bit difficult for everybody to come back together, but he is willing to rededicate himself for the party. Without people like Ofosu-Ampofo, How is the party going to go forward in terms of leadership? And has the party already initiated mechanisms to get people like Vosampofo back in the party's fold?
Well, I will not say that everything was rosy in the lead up to the elections. Some of the campaign messages were unsavory. Some of them were unfortunate. But that is the nature of competition. Sometimes it gets so tense that people lose their cool and say things that ordinarily wouldn't have been, said. And so I think that we should all learn lessons from some of the things that were said that we all find unpleasant, and moving forward, be more guided when we engage in subsequent competitions, especially when the contest is an internal one. Having said this, it is important for us to also understand that in any contest of any sort, you will find three ingredients. There will be truths, there will be untruths, and there will be exaggerations. So at the end of the day, it is up to the delegates and those campaigning to pray that people are discerning enough to decipher the truth from the untruths, and to choose the truths from the exaggerations. And so I'm not in a position to vouch for some of the things that were said about candidate A or candidate B. What I will just say is that at the end of the day, the delegates of our party have given us the direction that they want the leadership of the party to take the party to. And I pray that the grace of God will guide those who have been chosen, not to disappoint those who chose them, and also not to disappoint, the people of Ghana who are counting on the NDC to put his house in order to rescue this nation and build the Ghana that we all, deserve and want. And as for members of parliament declaring support, I know that it happened for both candidates. Both candidates, especially for the chairmanship race, had some members of parliament openly declaring support for them. So it doesn't make it tilted, in favor of one against the other. On our platform, sometimes members of parliament platform, sometimes supporters of the two candidates went at each other, a couple of times, selling and marketing their candidates. So it's not, it cannot be an example of how the race was tilted, because you had some members of parliament. They are right. They have the right to do so. You also had some leading members of the party who declared support for General Mosquito, and some of them declared support for Ovozampofo. At the end of the day, the delegates, who are the true owners of the party, the masses, have also accepted, the choice of the delegates. And for me, knowing the Ofosu-Ampofo that contested this election, knowing that Ofosu-Ampofo, who has, dedicated almost half of his life, adult life, full adult life, I'll say, but half of his life to the service of this NDC, he is not one to put impediments in the way of the party, especially when it is preparing for an election that is as crucial as this one is. I believe he's a bridge builder, and I know that he is going to be available, contributing, significantly to building bridges and to shaping the fight that the NDC will be taking to the NPP, all in efforts at rescuing Ghana and building the Ghana we want.
I mean, talking about 2024, already there are people who are doing a matchup between your executives and that of the NPP. They take chairman in team, then they take General Mosquito. They take Fifi Kwete, then they take Justin Frimpong Kodia. Do you believe these are the men that are going to be able to sufficiently match up your colleagues in the NPP and be able to wrestle power in 2024?
Well, to paraphrase from Dr. Baumia, that comparison is a match between a boot and a chalawiti. Because, I mean, the weight of General Mosquito is such that you cannot compare. The
team is very experienced. He contested 5 times and then he won.
Yeah, I mean, within the New Patriotic Party, it took him 5 attempts to even win one election within the New Patriotic Party. not even, you know, within the country. You're talking about General Mosquito, who is a 3-time member of parliament, decided willingly not to contest again. You are talking about General Mosquito, who has served the NDC as its general secretary for 17 years, and each time after 4 years went for contest and won massively. Talking about General Mosquito, who recently has just done what many thought was going to be difficult in grand style, you know, with ease. And so clearly, if you put General Mosquito and Stephen and Tim at the Makola market, you know where the numbers will go to. I don't have to tell you. So that is a mismatch. If you look at Fifi Kwete, clearly, in comparison to, you know, JFK, he's a novice. I mean, to put it, you know, mildly and with all due respect, he's a novice compared to Fifi Kwete. So it's a complete mismatch to do that comparison. But what I can assure you is that the caliber of people that the party has chosen for the 2024 general elections are the people that the party needs at this time. It doesn't mean that those who didn't win are not good or they haven't contributed significantly to the cause of the party over the years. It just means that this season and this time requires a certain kind of leadership. And the people who emerge, you know, package themselves to fit the bill. And that is why they were attracted, you know, they were attractive to the delegates, and that's why the delegates chose them. And I believe that they have what it takes not to disappoint the delegates. It's just as it is said, cometh a time, you know, cometh a man. It is the season, and it is what the party needs that influence the choice that they made at the Congress. It was not, in my view, a choice between who is better than the other. It was a choice between who fits this moment now and who doesn't.
Who doesn't. So finally on the Congress, there are those who have said that it was also a prop for former President John Mahama. His campaign songs were being played all over. I was there. And he was on the main podium. He spoke twice. He spoke during the beginning of the Congress. He spoke at the end of it. Governor Dufo was also there. He was sitting at the VIP. He wasn't made to speak. He was introduced once. There are those who have said that this was just one way also to just raise former President Mahama against other possible contenders, maybe lacing their boots to contest him for the flag bearership position.
Well, the grace of God works in so many ways. And unfortunately, people who refuse to accept the grace of God sometimes die in anguish. And I think that it is about time that some people within the NDC appreciate the fact that President Mahama is blessed with the grace of God. You may even say he doesn't deserve it because of how you feel about him. But who determines who gets favor from our Maker? You just have to accept it. Look, he is a former president, the only surviving former president of the National Democratic Congress stock. You cannot compare him to Dr. Kobna Dufo. Regardless,
yes, former governor of the Bank
of course, that is not former president. That is not. That's why I'm saying, regardless of Dr. Kobna Dufour's contributions to the NDC in the past and now, regardless to his contributions in government, you can simply not compare him to one who served as president and vice president of the party. And so when the party gather, you cannot, for the life of me, expect that they are given the same protocols. He is a former president. He is a former vice president.
But also someone who is seeking to run for the presidency again.
It does not diminish the protocols. The fact that he's seeking to run for office again does not diminish the protocols that are to be extended to a former president and a vice president. Does it? It doesn't. And so people have to accept that he has become the natural leader, even though we have a constitutional leader of the party. He has become the natural leader of the party in the absence of its founder, Jerry John Rawlings. You fight against it, and it is like kicking your foot, bare foot, against a stone. He has become a natural leader. Yes, the Constitution says the chairman of the party is the leader before the choice of a flag bearer. But, like I said, divine circumstances throw up leaders. And by divine, the founder of the party, who could have been or has served for a long time as a natural leader, is no more. And the only surviving former president we have from our stock is President Mahama. Remember, during the days of Professor Atta Mills after the 2000 elections, every time the NDC gathered, songs of Jerry Rawlings were loud. It gave way eventually to songs of Professor Mills. Even in the 2012 general elections, before the Idebi Keke song came out to upstage other songs of Professor Mills, songs of Professor Mills, you know, reigned. Even at platforms that former President former President John Mahama was campaigning to be elected as president. When we went to Kumasi as a party to endorse His Excellency John Mahama as our flag bearer for the 2012 general elections after the unfortunate demise of Professor Mills, at that Congress, whose songs were played? Did it mean that we were seeking to bring back Professor Mills from the grave? No. So circumstances just throw up leaders. And if you do not accept it, it is just going to, you know, serve as poison to you. So I don't think that it is deliberately staged, even if it is not, you know, deliberately staged. President Mahama has no match as far as the grassroots of the party is concerned today. So that is why some of us,
he's the one.
That's why, that is why, and you see, it is not about former President Mahama. It is about the NDC and it's about Ghana. Left to him alone, I'm not in his shoes, but left to him alone, I believe that he would have opted for a comfortable retirement because he has all his, you know, protocols and entitlements intact. Still, if he wants to live as a president of this country, he's going to do so comfortably. So if you find a man like that, still spending sleepless nights, traveling across the country, you know, supporting the NDC in the way that he has been doing, it should tell you that such a man is not a selfish person. Because a selfish person would have, you know, retired and just sat back and enjoyed the comfort of the office. He's doing this because he sees that there's still a lot of work to be done, and he accepts and understands the fact that, you know, people perhaps may have misconstrued his good intentions in office and misunderstood the vision with which he governed. And he thinks they deserve another opportunity to pronounce on his vision and to give him an opportunity to complete the unfinished task, you know, that he was given the first time. And so the masses of our party recognize this, and that is why they naturally gravitate towards him. And it is not as if some people have sat somewhere to deliberately tilt the scales in favor of President Mahama. He has simply naturally emerged as the natural leader of the NDC as it stands now.
I take your point in that, and you made a post on Facebook, which you suggest that, of course, if after his tenure another leader will emerge, just like you've taken us through. At one point it was Jerry John Rawlings, became Atta Mills, then him. So that is that. Let's come back to Parliament. The budget is just about getting approved in terms of its totality. The appropriation is set for tomorrow. You haven't taken any of the financial bills so far. The VAT and the e-levy amendment have all not come up. Your side have said that you are going to oppose them. But your side too have had cause to say that government should do this, government should build roads, government should build schools. There are significant concerns. For instance, at the moment, government is struggling to pay its debt. It just announced that it's suspending interest payment on external debts. These are some of the taxes government needs, so crucial to be able to pay these debts, to be able to meet these obligations. Are you not just putting stumbling blocks in the way of government, just as to frustrate them and make your path to returning to office in 2024 easy?
First of all, this government over the years has proven to be the most reckless government that we have ever witnessed in the Fourth Republic. Reckless in every sphere of life, and especially in management of our finances. This government is on record to have borrowed more than any other government in history, taking our debt from a little over 100 billion to almost 500 billion today. Within record time, 6 years, they have been to the capital markets to borrow more than any government has done. And this government is the government in the Fourth Republic, in the history of the Fourth Republic, that has inherited tremendous assets. Assets such as the 2 oil wells, Sankofa and 10, that increased Ghana's revenue, generation sources from 1 that was Jubilee to 3. They also inherited expanded ports. They inherited the international airport expanded, where they had the opportunity to get more revenue. They inherited the sinking fund, money, just liquid money, just put aside for rainy days. They inherited, infrastructure that works to pay for itself, like the turbo gas and others. So they came into office not only with the goodwill that the people gave them, but also with some good foundation being laid. They also went ahead to use some of the things they inherited to borrow, like ESLA.
You
collateralize it, get fund.
But it was also because they're doing big things. They're doing free SHS. That was draining on government resources.
That is the recklessness with which I speak of.
Free SHS is reckless.
Nobody has ever, and in the campaigns of the 2016, no one ever said that free SHS was not important. But just as we manage our life according to our, capacity, it was important that if it had to be done, it be done well. And if you do it recklessly like they did, then it becomes an excuse for your failure. Because you did not plan and you just decided to do it recklessly, and it has resulted in failures even with that policy and other sectors. It is embarrassing to show it up as the reason for your failure. Why didn't you plan? And that is why the NDC thought that the most rational way to have dealt with the introduction of free SHS was to do it progressively. So that you examine your capacity every step of the way and roll out more freebies as you go on.
They said that the Ghanaian student could not wait. There are people who were falling out after basic school and they were not being able to progress. We cannot ask them to wait until government has the means. And so if you can use all the revenues you have to be able to finance the education of your children, then that is building your future. That is some sound argument. And so far, 6 years, they've been able to do it for at least for the last 5 years. Although the amount of money that have gone into it, colossal amounts of money. But they say they are banking on the hope, on the future of this country.
First of all, it is not true that colossal sums of money have gone into it. We tolerate that argument because we don't want the numbers to confuse people. But the fact remains, like I've told you, that this government has taken our debt from about 125 billion to 400, almost 500
yeah,
billion.
450 billion.
450 billion thereabout. How much of that billions have gone into free SHS? Sometimes in a year, they spend less than, according to the budget, 2 billion on free SHS. 2. And we are talking about hundreds of billions. So when they tell you that the problems are as a result of free SHS, and even though they have borrowed this much and they have gotten that much from the oil, free SHS is the problem, it's a lie. Because the amount of money that goes to free SHS is less than 1%. So it's a lie. But even if you take that for argument's sake, how true is it that free SHS has come to solve the problem of illiteracy and people not having the opportunity to benefit from the education that they are provided? How true is that assertion? Today, Send Ghana and other NGOs are all complaining about the neglect that the basic level education is faced with today.
Yeah.
What is the use of having secondary education without a proper foundation and without a proper roofing? Because investments to basic education, such as KG to primary and JHS, have dwindled over the years, leading to, massive decay of standards at that level. That is the foundation. Tertiary is worse. Get Fund is strangulated because of the debts. It's choked and is unable to expand infrastructure in our various schools. So the schools are already congested, awaiting the graduates from the free SHS program. And no corresponding investments are put in there to take care of it. Lecturers are on strike because conditions of service are that bad. So you are deceiving the people that you are spending all the money at the secondary level, when the truth is that you are spending less than 2% of the money available to you at that level. And yet, even that 2% that you spend there is not guaranteeing anybody any better impact as far as the expectations we have of education is concerned.
So your side will not consider this VAT and e-levy revision because the finance minister has said that one of the reasons why we are here is because your side frustrated the passage of the e-levy. They said that they were not going to go to the IMF with the e-levy. Yeah. But it took almost 4 months. E-levy was finally approved in March. And then it led to the public having a certain perception about that tax measure. Then ultimately it's almost failing because it's not generating the kind of revenue government expected. And it dampened the investor confidence in the government's ability to raise revenue.
Yeah, so I was making the point about how this government has been very reckless in every sphere of life, especially when it comes to managing our finances. And that was just to drive home the point that their problem is not with increased revenue. Because over the years, we have helped them to introduce a number of revenue, handles. Yeah. We have also, like I indicated, handed over to them a number of areas with opportunity to increase government revenue.
So what's the problem then?
The problem is the recklessness and the thievery and the corruption and the wastage. That is where the problem is. And the cluelessness, because sometimes it is not thievery, sometimes it's not corruption, sometimes it's just applying the funds to areas that will not generate growth. And that must be a matter of cluelessness when it comes to governance. For example, when you have money and you have a child in school, and instead of buying, textbooks for your child to study and paying your teacher well to take the child through, his or her education and providing teaching learning materials for the child, you decide to keep that money and use it to buy math sets and question papers for the child because there is some procurement value in it. I mean, even if you ignore the possibility of corruption in there, you can't ignore the fact that this must be the act of someone who is clueless about how to make a child better with education. So they have been that reckless in investing the funds that come to them, and that is why we are where we are today. When the sad thing, my brother, is that they are not even honest about their failings. And so you find them blaming everyone and anything except themselves. They will blame Ukrainian war, they will blame COVID, they will blame even the death of the Queen, but they will never accept their responsibility, as if they came into office to take no responsibility for anything. Sometimes it gets even so nauseating when they blame former President Mahama, who left office 6 years ago after all that he left behind for them. But that is their stock in trade. You introduce a policy measure, a tax policy measure that was unpopular from day one. That, according to all experts, you were told will not yield the results that you were expecting. All experts, NGOs, civil society groups, warned them. They showed arrogance and intransigence and stuck to it, got it passed willy-nilly. And then when it fails, they don't admit their wrong projections, they don't admit their intransigence and their arrogance. They find the NDC minority, you know, easy target to blame. They must show some level of responsibility, you know, even as they seek cooperation from the NDC. But clearly, they are living in a world of their own. And the point has to be made that their problem is not more revenue. When they ask the people of Ghana to tighten their belts, we want to see them also with belts on. But it seems to me that they don't even have belt hooks on their pants. And so we have seen them raise so much revenue in the past, and we have watched them waste it all. And we are saying that enough is enough. Look at the budget that we are considering today. How many vindications do you see in that budget? I'll just give you a couple. Road
tolls are coming back.
I'll just give you a couple. Yes, thank you. Road tolls are coming back. Who forced them to take it out? Didn't we tell them it was a wrong measure? VAT, that was Nanado's trump card to be elected as president, because he said he galvanized people through the Kumupreko March to demonstrate against VAT. He's now seeking 2.5 increase of that same tax handle.
E-levy is being revised.
E-levy that we told them at the time that worst case scenario was to consider a reduction of the threshold when we opposed it. You remember, we gave them that option of reducing the threshold. They said they were not going to do so. They reduced it from 1.75 to 1.5. We told them it wasn't enough. They insisted. Today, they are bringing it back to 1%. Benchmark values. What didn't we tell them when they introduced those benchmark values? We told them it was not going to impact their revenue. We told them it was going to create confusion at the ports. I mean, we told them it wasn't going to impact their revenue positively. We have been vindicated. They are bringing it back. So they came not to govern, but to politic and to toy with long established traditional ways of, you know, growing this country economically. Look at the issue of misreporting. On the numbers, how many times did Adongo and Atuforsen raise the issue of the finance minister not reporting accurately, and thus showing a picture of a healthy economy? And we looked on. It took the presentation of the budget, I think it was in the 2021 budget, when the Osai Chairman Sabonsu was to present the budget, and due to the strong protests that we mounted as a minority, that they incorporated the energy sector, you know, debt and others that were always treated as below the line items into the debt stock, which surprised all of us with the debt to GDP ratio that we were now having to deal with. Perhaps if they had started reporting earlier, correctly, if they had started reporting correctly earlier, we would not have all been surprised by the fact that our debt to GDP is now all of a sudden 104%, and we are insolvent and can't pay our debts. Today, they have started reporting accurately, and that is why we now all know that our debt to GDP is over 100%. So, a lot of vindications in that budget, but the intransigence continue, the dishonesty is continued.
The man you blame for all of this is Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. You tried to get him out through a vote of censure. It failed. Is that the end of the road? Are you going to just leave him for the next 2 years if the president is so minded to keep him?
It's such a tragedy that, you know, the president still continue to show that level of faith in the finance minister who, together with his economic management team, has advised him, if they have been advising him, and if he has been taking their advice, to plunge this country into the mess that we find ourselves. That is why His Excellency former President Mahama called for the dissolution of the economic management team and the removal of the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, as his chair, even as Parliament dealt with the censure motion to get the minister removed. I think that, for me, seemed like a more holistic approach to a problem that we are faced with, instead of just dealing with only the finance minister. Yes, as members of Parliament on the minority side, we knew from the beginning that we did not have the numbers so required to remove the finance minister or to pass a motion of censure against him, because the constitution requires 2/3 of members of Parliament.
And your colleagues told you they were not going to support you.
Exactly.
So you it.
Exactly. But you see, we from day one discussed these because we thought that something had to give. Somebody had to be held responsible for the mess that we found ourselves in. And who better than the man that we had some level of control over when it
came to
yes,
parliamentary oversight. Were you surprised that these NPP MPs, 98 of them, the majority leader later said that it was something the caucus entirely agreed on? Were you surprised that they did not support you to get the censure motion through?
I was disappointed. I wasn't surprised. I thought it was possible, even from day one when we began the process. I thought it was possible that they would be whipped, they would be cowed, and they would be, you know, they would develop cold feet. I thought so. But I was hoping, against all hope, that they will stick to their guns and demonstrate the level of patriotism with which they started their calls. But I was heavily disappointed when, in the end, they cut out to whatever pressure I'm unable to tell. Some say it was political pressure, party pressure. Others attribute it to the involvement of some businessmen and others. We are unable to tell what really happened. But my disappointment, I'm sure, is in line with the disappointment of many Ghanaians, especially the constituents of these MPs, who first raised their hopes that they were going to fight, you know, for them. I thought it was a miscalculation on the parts of these MPs to have joined their colleagues to boycott the motion when it came to the voting. And I believe that many of them will suffer the consequences, especially during their primaries. Because one, the President Nana Akufo-Addo has shown since he became president, and even before that, when he was leader of the NPP, that he's an unforgiving person. And so you go against him and he fights you to the floor. And so they are going to contend with their, you know, open aggression towards him in their internal party primaries. I can bet my last penny that they will. And then they will also be faced with the betrayal of the trust of their people who were expecting them to carry this fight through. And so I won't be surprised if many of them pay for that miscalculation and that wrong judgment call they made to boycott the motion of censure. But we on the minority side, we feel proud. We are happy that we're able to deliver our 136 after the machinations of the court to reduce our numbers to 136. We're able to deliver that, and we are proud. We will forever be remembered in history as the MPs who made the effort.
So is that the end of the road?
For now, we are still considering other options that are available to us. And I'm sure that when the caucus decides on the next step, it will be communicated.
Right. So we've been speaking to MP for Tamale North, Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini. We've been speaking about the budget, the Senja motion fiasco, and a number of key national issues, including their party's just ended National Delegates Conference that elected Johnson Esedin Kweti as national chairman, their former colleague in Parliament, Fifi Kweti, as general secretary, and a host of other people. He says that he believes that this is the team that will lead and match the NPP boot for boot.
Boot for Chalawate.
Boot for Chalawate, in his words, ahead of that 2024 crucial election. So, Honorable, that's the we are grateful that you made time to speak to us. It's the end of the year. If you have any message for your constituents.
Well, chekankuzang piango kapuhe Tamale North zaha nangban yene tenanamata dal fakpamba ntepate manama ntebanama na ompahmi alafi kachekate piale ya chankatanga idadwa nyala demparete tenabwari idadwa pam kabwari yuwumso na one ne song so kamzaha. As we approach the new year, I wish everyone, especially the Christian community in the Tamale North constituency, a very happy, jolly, Christmas and a prosperous new year, a year without the burden of e-levy and an increase in VAT.
So that is how we will end this conversation. I'm grateful that you made time to join us. My name is Kweku Asante. Have a good day.